Hello everyone. I hope you're doing well after the Thanksgiving holiday in the US. This week, the week after Thanksgiving, has been an extraordinarily crazy one. I mean, we all have crazy lives these days, it seems, whether that's schedule-wise, workload, family, obligations, even good things that happen in life can be stressful if there's change involved. Yeah, that's this week. So therefore, I was looking for some calming reads. I do not know why I started reading this third Vigdis Hjorth. I didn't know anything about this book. I don't recommend that if you don't need to look for trigger warnings in books, I would recommend not knowing very much going into this book. Will and Testament, you have to guess that it might have to do with somebody dying and there being a will. But what's the testament part? This is a family saga, but told from the perspective of the main character, whose name I will not be able to pronounce, but I have tried to learn it by going onto one of those sites where it says the name or says the word when you type it in. Bergliozht. It looks like it's spelled Bergliot, but that's not how it's pronounced, I don't think. So sorry that I'm not getting the name right. But Vigdis Hjorth is the author of over a dozen prize-winning and best-selling novels. She's Norwegian, but I don't believe that more than 3 of them have been translated to English, and so that's why I've read the 3. Now I have, I don't know how many pages, 50 to go. I've been reading this really slowly because it is dense. It creates this gentle tension. Bergliozht is a daughter of parents that she has a very strained relationship with. She has a brother who I think is a little bit older. They're the older kids. And then there are 2 or 3 younger daughters. Younger by maybe 10 years. One of those parents dies during this story, but she has a very difficult relationship with both of them. The parents are not likable to me as they're described by Bergliozht. There aren't very many likable people, and it's a tense book to read, so I wasn't sure if I could keep reading it this week. But I kept being drawn in by the writing and the character development, the way that Vigdis Hjorth does that in bits and pieces. And as the story goes on, you hear from different family members, so you get other perspectives of this main character other than from herself. So there's not much to say about the plot because, boy, I just don't want to give anything away. But really, it is the writing that's keeping me in it. It is a frantic mess of a book. And there is a lot of antagonizing conversations and reliving of certain things that have happened. But on the back, and again, if I would not read, if you don't need to know much about the book, I would not read the flap, the inside flap. But just a couple blurbs on the back. This is the thing that really drew me in. It says, the strength of the novel lies in Bergliozht's convincing and continuing vulnerability, in her mixed feelings and her flaws. A clear-eyed and convincing story of a family's doomed attempt to reconcile and the limits of forgiveness. I'll talk a little bit more about this when I finish it, but this is such a psychological study of when family members don't agree with each other and what is redemption. And maybe Berglioz, this is the journey for her of learning what that means to her in the end, or what it will mean. Yeah, so really interesting. So the other, well, not the other calming read, but the calming read that I picked up again, that I had put aside because I was reading other books, was my continuing read of the Trollope Barsetshire Chronicles, which includes, 6 books. So now I'm reading The Small House at Allington, and like a lot of the books in this series, this one, it's a chunkster, and it starts off really slow. And with this series, I end up getting like a hangover from the book I just finished. So as I am learning that as I go into a new book, I'm hungover from enjoying the last one, and I'm pretty convinced that the new one I'm starting isn't going to be as good as the ones I've already read. I'm trying to find the list of the books, but I think the one that comes before this is Dr. Thorne, and that was one especially that I thought, I don't want to learn about all these new characters. I liked the characters that were in those other books that I read. It starts off with the warden, and then it goes to, just not going to remember. My mind is absolutely blanking, but it took me a while. I'm glad I picked this up again because then it started really gelling. The new character that you're introduced to, Crosby, and the Dale family, the characters of Lily Dale and her sister Beth. These books are written in the mid 1860s to late 1800s, so there's a lot of, I guess what you would call the marriage plot. These are people that are looking to be married and be marriageable and find people that are marriageable, that have some money. Men are trying to find women that have a little bit of money in the family if they need it, and that would be helpful. It's Trollope again at his best here, and this book to me is different than the other ones that I've read so far in the series because there is a shocking surprise that is about halfway in that I just came on, and it was a gasper. I was like, what? I would strongly recommend against reading the back. The only thing that I read was this top thing. But I mean, with this series, you don't need to read the description of what's going to happen in the new book that you start. It's all this family in the area. So you don't need to, this description, I can tell. I started reading it because I started to feel a little more comfortable since I'm halfway in, and I stopped because I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't read this on my way into this book because it tells you too much. And the fact that I was at the level of a gasp surprised was so enjoyable. So I recommend against reading anything about the book. I mean, it's the next one in the series. Just pick it up and start reading. And like Dr. Thorne, you got to hang in there. You've got to hang in there. Trollope likes to use a lot of words. So you have to be patient with this one. So I'm really glad that I was looking for something a little more tame, and I was able to. That gave me a reason to pick this up again because now I'm back in the fold, and I'm really happy about that. Oh, and then I read again for solace, for relaxation. I pick up The Death of Ivan Ilyich. But I don't, it was supposed to be something I was reading Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know why. You know how I don't plan my reading, but I just thought, I know it's short. I've heard a lot of people talking about this short story. Wouldn't it be interesting to read another Tolstoy? Yes, I'm already reading War and Peace, and I don't really want to read any more Tolstoy right now. But, I'll be able to just read it in a couple hours here and there throughout a day. So I did that over the weekend. And I mean, it's a tough story. It's about the death of Ivan Ilyich. But what's really great here is to see Tolstoy, how he's structuring this story. You know, how Russian authors back at this time were structuring their stories. How it opens with the death, with the news of the death of Ivan Ilyich. We begin the story by his co-workers gathering around and talking about who's going to take the place of Ivan Ilyich now that he's dead. Is it going to be me? I think it's going to be me. Other people are thinking, I hope it's not you, because I want it to be me. An age-old, not backstabbing, but, you know, workplace stuff. And then Tolstoy takes us back to Ivan's life and why he gets married to the person that he does, why he gets married at all, his rise into fame, and how maybe that wasn't the best thing. He was chasing a bigger salary and he had to make some compromises in doing that. Something we can all relate to today. How do you make choices about your quality of life? And back then it was it was common that you would marry someone because you married someone and not necessarily because they were going to be the love of your life. So it was interesting to see how that relationship evolves with his wife and how she evolves too with this rising into a higher position. So yeah, it was definitely worth reading. It's a very quick read. I am now enthused to read the other stories in this book, because the one thing I did before I read The Death of Ivan Ilyich is I read the introduction. I wasn't afraid to read the introduction here because, number one, it's short. And it's really just an introduction into the stories and when they were written. And it wasn't really giving anything away. And I didn't care whether it gave anything away anyway. And the introduction is by the translator, Rosemary Edmonds. So that was cool. I like that. I like this edition, even though I don't really care for the way that these are designed. That's it for me. What do I have ahead? I have Kudos here, just as a reminder that I feel like I'm going to read this when I'm on a quick trip at the end of next week. I'm going to take it with me while I'm traveling. Apropos, because there's an airplane window on the front of this book, so that's cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to starting this while I'm traveling. And then I have a couple books coming from the library that I had on hold, but I don't know how any of those are going to turn out, so we'll see. I'd love to hear what you were up to over the Thanksgiving weekend, and of course, what your experience has been with Vigdis Hjorth. Don't give anything away in the comments about Will and Testament. I would say that ranking the 3 books that I've read, even though I haven't finished this one yet, I would say that both Is Mother Dead and this one are the top 2. They're almost neck and neck for me. They're really difficult family stories, but ones that I just felt compelled to keep reading because it's more of an internal psychological, not battle, but challenge, although not entirely psychological. And the Post-Torn book, Long Live the Post-Torn, I feel might even be a good place to start with the 3 books that are translated into English. But it's tricky because I felt like it had a very slow start, but then it really develops and into something, and you get it in the end. At least I did, or at least I thought I did, and it stuck with me a long time. I just thought, wow, that was brilliant, the way that she put that together. I get it now. So yeah, let me know what you're up to going into December. I've seen all the lovely videos about winter reads. I don't tend to think that way, but I'm feeling inspired to think that way. So maybe I'll get my thoughts together on that. And I certainly don't have any plans for December. Hi, Editing Renee here. As I'm editing this video, I have found that like the last 60 seconds of this video when I was saying goodbye, completely lost sound. So here I am to say goodbye. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. I look forward to you joining me on the next one. Bye.